My name is Jani Jo Wood. I'm running for the Court of Criminal Appeals, Place 4. And the reason I'm running is there are currently 3 open seats. So the court, 1/3 of it is going to change. And I feel I'm the most qualified to run for the court. I'm the only one in my race who's board certified in criminal appellate law. I'm the only one that has extensive federal practice, which helps because when the death penalty cases end up in federal court, it's good to know when you're at the Court of Criminal Appeals what's going to happen and how your opinions need to answer the questions any federal judges might have. I also have been a law professor adjunct at the University of Houston Law Center, and I've spent my entire career doing criminal appellate work. And I'm spent 2 years as a staff attorney at the Court of Criminal Appeals. So I'm running because I believe the court needs a balance. I provide a balance and someone who is uniquely qualified for the court.
How would you describe your judicial philosophy?
My philosophy is to be a constitutional conservative. And what I mean by that is we should look to the Constitution to guide the decisions. We shouldn't worry as a judge ever what the result is. The result isn't what we're concerned with. It's following the Constitution, following the laws as written by our legislature, and make sure that everything is followed.
This is an important position, although it is down ballot, but the entire state will vote for it. Why should Texans care about this?
Well, Texans should care about it because the Court of Criminal Appeals is the court of last resort for the death penalty and for all criminal matters. And so even to the point of getting a traffic ticket, although it's considered non-criminal, those sort of things can be considered by the Court of Criminal Appeals. It affects all of us. Even if you've never been arrested or had a relative arrested, those are citizens of this state, and we need to make sure that the right people are arrested, that they're afforded due process, which is fairness in a trial system, and that the convictions are affirmed or reversed depending solely on the law.
Some have alleged that the Court of Criminal Appeals is too state or prosecutor friendly and has a propensity to dismiss serious prosecutorial misconduct as, quote, harmless error. Do you agree with this assessment, and if so, how would you bring a different approach to the bench?
I have heard that, and sometimes I do think the court doesn't get it right. For example, the Anthony Graves case. He was someone who was on death row who was later exonerated, and the Court of Criminal Appeals, in reviewing the new evidence in his case, said, well, you weren't entitled to a good lawyer on your habeas, so we can't help you. And it took the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans to reverse that and later on release an innocent man. So I do think the Court of Criminal Appeals sometimes is removed from, the actual day-to-day realities of criminal work. Currently, 8 of the 9 judges are prosecutors, or their backgrounds are in prosecution. I have been a public defender, I have worked in the prison system, and I have represented the citizen accused. And so I bring with that the unique understanding of what it's like to defend somebody when you don't even, until the Michael Morton Act, you didn't even have the offense report. I bring the perspective that everyone, including the police, need to follow the law. And so I do think the court is very states-oriented at this time because that's the experience the court has. But if to elect someone like me could bring a different perspective.
Continuing on the subject, do you think the current Court of Criminal Appeals properly vets capital punishment cases?
I would like to believe they do. Those cases are uniquely difficult, and I know they have staff attorneys that solely handle death penalty cases to make recommendations to the judges. So I would like to believe they do, but recognizing that those cases are extremely difficult and they go on for years and years, I think someone who has practiced capital work and understands what it's like, I would be well suited to the court. So I think they have gotten some cases wrong. As I said, Anthony Graves, and then there was ex parte Delma Banks, which the Court of Criminal Appeals said, well, you've had enough chances. We're not going to consider you anymore. And later on, the United States Supreme Court reversed that case and said, look, the state hid evidence. We don't care that he's back here a second or third time. They hid evidence which proved that the main witness against him was lying. So I do think the perception has some truth behind it.
Tell us about your affiliation with the Texas Innocence Project and what impact, if any, it will have on your conduct as a judge.
I think, well, first, what impact it will have on my conduct as a judge is none, other than recognizing that sometimes it's not always what it seems. I've been very proud to be a part of the Innocence Project of Texas because we have fought through with no funding, trying to get people's DNA tested, and I have spent considerable time with exonerees who spent 20 and 30 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit. So I think that gives me a perspective to understand, to look at everything critically and evaluate it fairly, and not just assume if someone has a guilty verdict that they're always guilty.
Much of the criticism on the death row issue is that, you know, the convicted spend a lot of time, many years on death row before the execution is actually carried out. Is there anything a judge can do, or you can do as a judge, to expedite the appeals process?
Well, I think the Court of Criminal Appeals has actually been very proactive in writing back to the district courts, but the process is long, and probably for a good reason, so that the passion of the crime is dissipated, and that, you know, you go to trial, it can take the court reporter 6 months to type that up. And then you have to have lawyers read it, and then the court has to read it and write an opinion. So while it seems like it takes an inordinate amount of time, and in some cases I know it does, it's a process that works, and our legislature has speeded up the process. Inmates on death row are only afforded one writ of habeas corpus, whereas before they could do several. So I think the legislature and the court have worked to make the system more efficient, and while maybe several years doesn't seem efficient, when you look at everything that needs to be done, it probably is fairly efficient.
One of the constitutional amendments that got passed in Texas in the fall was Proposition 9, which expanded or changed the range of disciplinary actions taken against a judge in case, you know, misconduct is found. What are your thoughts on this passage?
I think if you are an elected public servant, you have a higher oath and duty to the people of the state. And I think if you do violate a rule, or you do something that is against our code of ethics, I think you should be sanctioned for it. You know, running for office is kind of like a job interview. I'm asking, you know, millions of Texans to elect me, vote for me, hire me. And to that end, if I don't do what's right, they have, I think, full right and to punish me.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us. How can people find out more about your campaign?
They can log on to www.janijo.com. That's Jani Jo, and I'm on Facebook at janijowood.com. Thank you.